Hello and welcome to part 2 of our conversation with David Kingsbury. Today, David tells us how actors approach physical training from a business standpoint and the biggest mistakes that regular people make when it comes to health and nutrition. I can't wait for you to hear this episode of the Peak Performers Podcast.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Tell us about one of your clients. Apparently, he's stolen my name, Chris Hemsworth, the other Thor.
Chris is someone I've known for a long time, and I've done some training with him, just bits and pieces on various jobs. I've sort of never been hired as his full-time trainer as such, but I worked with him quite a bit on a film called Snow White and the Huntsman.
Yeah,
and he's done a lot of Thai boxing in the past, so Muay Thai. And I have a Muay Thai background as well. I actually lived in Thailand for a period of time, and I had 6 professional fights out there. So instantly, we kind of clicked in that respect because we both really enjoyed that. And for the course of that film, we did quite a lot of training together with pad work and hitting the pads, kicking the pads, and it was a great experience working with him on that.
David, I want to dive in a little bit and kind of uncover some of the mindsets that these actors have, and any of your clients that are really excelling at the highest level. What are they doing what others, other mortals are not doing? Where is their advantage? Where's their peak performance coming from?
Yes, I mean, in terms of how they approach their work and how they approach what they have to achieve, they treat their physical side of things as part of their business. So in order to be successful as their role, they have to treat their body as part of that role. So if their character has a certain strength, has a certain look, and they want to essentially they have to become that character, then their body has to go on that journey with their mind and so on and so forth. And a lot of these actors, they'll really engross themselves in that role and in that character. They'll be studying up on how they would be behaving, but also they would be looking at how their strength would be, how their fitness would be, how their posture would be, and all of these kind of things. So they really do get very, very involved in their characters. So their physical aspect gets is a huge part of that as well.
You just hit on something that's really, really interesting that we talk about all the time here, and that is your identity. Who do you see yourself as? And I love what he said. I literally got chills when he said that, because it is so important, because we want to stay congruent in consistency of the way we see ourselves. So if you see yourself as somebody that's not in shape and doesn't eat well, it's just, that's really who we become. And I love that. As they activate, they take on the body and the mind and the identity of that role. And what a great and powerful tool for anybody to use.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's an incredibly powerful tool for success, in any form. But it can be quite a traumatic and quite a difficult process as well. If the character you're becoming is, or you're studying and you are becoming in that sense, is troubled, for example, then that can have a knock-on effect on your mood and your energy levels and so on and so forth. So they have to be very aware of that. And really focus on every aspect of it in that sense.
Who's holding you accountable? Many will answer, myself. Well, that only goes so far. You'll do more for others than you'll do for yourself. If you're not getting the results that you want, need, and desire, it comes down to your accountability. If you're ready to stop dabbling and really play full out, head on over to thorconklin.com and under services, check out our real accountability system. This is not for the timid or weak of heart. This is only for those individuals that are truly committed to taking their game to the next level. What's some of the biggest mistakes that you find that, us mere mortals make when it comes to our health and nutrition?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest advantage of having a personal trainer and having a team of people working with you is that planning goes into your health and fitness. For most people, health and fitness is just luck and chance and habit. Whereas with actors and actresses that I work with and every other nutritionist and trainer works with, careful planning goes into every aspect of it. So the sessions are planned, to achieve progression and therefore to achieve continuous results. The nutrition is designed and delivered to them in the perfect format so they can achieve their results as well. So on most of these jobs I work on, there'll be a private chef cooking for the actors. In that situation, what I'll do is I will create the menu, deliver the menu to the chef. The chef will cook the food, and then the food will be delivered to the actor on set at the times that they need it. So it's very kind of careful planning that goes into it. But for mere mortals like myself and a lot of other people that I work with, they don't have a private chef, they don't have a nutritionist, they don't necessarily even have a trainer, but you can still take control and you can still plan and organize your food. So having, preparing your lunches and your meals so that you've always got something that's balanced and got the right energy for you is a huge part of a successful training plan. And also planning your training so that you are making, selecting exercises that can be beneficial for you, but also sticking at those exercises to ensure that you do make progress. When you feel like you're strong enough to increase the weight or go a little bit harder on your intervals, then absolutely do. Don't just stay static at that point where you're at. I worked at a gym 10 years ago, and a couple of years, maybe it was 2 or 3 years after I'd left the gym, I went back there. And there was a guy in the gym, and I'd written his program 3 or 4 years earlier. And he said, "Oh, hi, Dave. How's it going?" I said, "It's great, thanks." He said, "I'm still following your plan." And I was like, wow. He'd been using the same weights, and he'd been doing exactly the same thing for like almost 4 years. And it's just one of those things where you just think, look, if you just have to increase your weights, you have to be planning for the future. You can't just stay absolutely static like that. You have to keep moving forwards.
Yeah, and you need somebody around you. It's so interesting as you're saying this. We talk about it here all the time, and I just want to touch on this real briefly, and that's the ultimate success map. And that is simply, first and foremost, figure out what you want. Have an end goal. Then come up with an efficient and an effective plan. Decide, and then really commit to it. Check in with your beliefs and make sure that there's nothing that's stopping you, that your identity is in alignment with this, and then take massive action. Act over and over and over again, and adjust, increase those weights, and then the T-gate, right? We talk about it here on the show all the time. Time. Once you start acting, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and have muscles like Hugh Jackman. You've got to put in the time repeatedly over and over again. And what I love is we talk about accountability here a lot. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're there as their accountability partner. You're there making sure that they stay on the plan that they committed to. You're their advisor. You're their coach. You make the adjustments. This is exactly what we talk about in business every single day here. And I love how it applies to what you're doing as well.
Yeah, and from a huge part of it from my perspective, and I see this with a lot of people, is a lot of people don't ever even take that first step because they're not sure of whether it's going to be successful or not. So they will hold back, and they'll put it off because they don't trust what they're going to be doing to achieve the results. And this is why if you have that trainer, if you have that expertise of that support, it gives you that trust that you can take that first step and then continue on that journey. And without the trust and belief that you can succeed, then you're never going to take that step in the first place.
Yeah, and what's so often, so many people get confused that right into the show all the time. They're like, well, that's easy for you to know because you know it's going to be successful. Half the stuff we try, we don't know is going to be successful. Half of it doesn't work. Well, maybe 3/4 of it doesn't work. We just run at it, assuming that it's going to work, making sure we don't get killed in the process. But we don't know either. We're just doing it. And the other thing is, we know that it takes time. When you're sitting there and you're doing this thing day after day, and it's like nothing's working, stick with it. Because it just takes that moment. I always give the example that bamboo takes 7 years to actually sprout above the ground. But once it sprouts, baby, it runs.
It's very true.
And
Definitely.
So many of us give up on our dreams or desires or our fitness because after 5 days at the gym, we don't see results. Well, that's not the way life works.
Absolutely.
What's some of the best advice you've ever received?
Yeah, so one of the best bits of advice I ever received was actually from it was from an online personal training client, so a long time ago. But this was when I first started out in that side of business, and it was to focus on the needs of every single client and make the focus of the business ensuring that each and every client was happy and was achieving results. I think a lot of the online training business in particular is overwhelmed by people just kind of putting out information that's not necessarily personalized and useful for each person. Whereas I've always approached it from a point of view of sharing information that people can take away, and they can kind of break it down for their individual goals and their individual needs, and then run with that. And essentially that's how I've always worked with my training programs and my plans, is that every single one of us is completely different. We have different demands, we have different genetics, different we have different abilities and different sort of lifestyles and time available, and therefore we should all be treated as individuals, and all of our training and nutrition should be exactly focused on our individual goals.
That is great advice. I have a friend of mine that she has a training business, and she specializes in new moms and expecting moms, and that's all she does. And of course, she was a new mom and expecting mom, and she kept phenomenal fitness throughout the entire process. And she trains people around the world via Skype and Zoom. And
yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, she does it in a group setting as well. It's great. It's a great little niche. And I said, what are you doing to touch base with your clients one-on-one? She goes, well, I'm not really doing a lot of that because it's group and I don't have all the time to do that. I said, you may not have all the time. It may not be your business model, but I'm telling you, and I want you to listen, make sure you take the time to answer questions from people that email you or call you or Skype you or whatever it is. Take that 4 minutes and connect with that person. Because here's a young mom, a new mom, that's freaking out. She doesn't know what's going on. You've been through it. And if you're able to help her and really connect with her one-on-one, that's a client that will be with you the rest of her life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a little team of people that work with me, and they often say that I give away too much free advice. I give away too much to people who are just asking for help. But I completely agree with what you just said there. Like, if someone comes to me and asks me for advice and I give them quite a lot of free information, I believe that maybe in a year or in 2 years, when their situation changes or their goals change, they might come back and then work with me then. So I'll always give away, help as many people as I can. I'll answer, all the questions that come through on my emails, on my Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, all of these places. I'll answer questions, and we get some kind of, unusual questions through, like what exercises can I use to make me taller and these kind of things. But I'll always get back to people, and I'll always help them in the best way I possibly can, because I believe that even if they never sign up, at least I've done some good there. And quite often I'll get an email through. I had one recent, I think it was 2 days ago, an email through from a guy, and he downloaded like a free ebook that I put out in in December, and he was like, I've lost 12 pounds since starting the free ebook. And it's like, that's something that I gave away absolutely free of charge. Yep. And it was just the kind of tips and advice on really covered the basics, but also how people could personalize their fitness, and he got amazing results from it. And it was kind of great for me to I love getting emails like that. It was fantastic to see.
Right. I mean, look, I'm sure that's why you do it. That's why I do it. I mean, we live for those emails, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, yeah.
We don't pay the mortgage with those emails, but
no.
that's what we live for. I mean, it's amazing. If you're not in this business and you're not touching people's lives, you're truly missing something, because there's so much feedback that you get back, and you don't even know. What I don't find, which is really interesting, I'm sure you find this as well. You'll get an email about something like, thank you for this bit of advice on this, and this. It's like, it's such a random or sometimes insignificant point that we think sometimes we're making that can make the biggest changes in somebody's life.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Without doubt. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, Simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.
That brings us to the end of another episode of the Peak Performers Podcast. Be on the lookout for part 3 with David Kingsbury, where he tells us all about his daily habits, not only for being successful himself, but for being successful with other successful people. We'll also talk about visualization and get David's tips for creating and sustaining energy. Now, who couldn't use a little more of that? That's next time on the Peak Performers Podcast. We'll see you at the top.